tonight we have several stories coming from you about Spoon River and the things that have gone on there lately. Tom Merritt came home recently to find another man in his house, and his first instinct was to kill this man, obviously, but he thinks about it and decides against it. The man in his house was Elmer Carr. Tom's wife, Mrs. Merritt, this was her boyfriend. And then Elmer Carr actually kills Tom Merritt in his own house. Roscoe Perkapile told his wife an elaborate story about being away at sea. Well, really, he was just cheating on her with Mrs. Williams. Mrs. Williams got around with basically everyone in Spoon River. And Mrs. Perkapile knew that her husband was cheating on her and lying about this elaborate story, but she pretended to believe it anyway and made him suffer by staying around. Mrs. Williams also had a daughter named Dora, and Dora married several men, and these men all suspiciously died somehow, and they were all very rich. But she claimed to love Reuben, and Reuben claimed to love his school teacher, Emily Sparks. Washington McNeely had several kids, and he sent them off, gave them money. All of them failed. Paul, one of the only children that didn't die, was left in love with a woman named Jane. Mary, his daughter, was sad about disappointing her father, but also was in love with a man in the town. Ollie McGee tells about her husband who took her beauty and her life. I'm guessing he beat her a lot. Fletcher McGee, her husband, tells us about how she now haunts him everywhere he goes, and she thinks that this is her being avenged. Jack McGuire killed a man. He was a drunk, as everyone in the town knew, and Kinsey Keene was his lawyer. Kinsey Keene talks a lot about Thomas Rhodes, who was the president of the bank. Benjamin Pantier was upset with his life. He drank all the time. His wife, Mrs. Benjamin Pantier, got tired of it and banished him and his dog to sleep in his office and drink there all the time. They also had a son named Reuben Pantier, who was in love with Dora and his school teacher. And Lucinda and Davis Matlock were one of the only happy couples left in Spoon River. They liked their lives and everything, but they had tons of children, and most of them died, whether they were suicides or they just died. Amos Sibley hated his wife, but knew that divorce was going to be a disgrace to him and the church would never accept it. And Mrs. Sibley had a lot of secrets that she was keeping from everyone. Dr. Myers tried to help Minerva Jones when she came to him and said that she was sick, but she ended up dying, and the newspapers blamed the doctor and indicted him, and Mrs. Myers knew that they were all lies and knew that her husband was innocent, and she was very brokenhearted and upset about all of these things.